Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and in today's video, we're talking about a bit of a weird topic, right? I'm sure that plenty of you clicked on this video, you're thinking, why is this guy talking about Giannis and the future of Giannis? And he just signed this big extension. Shouldn't, there be a parade in downtown Milwaukee? Well, one, no, there shouldn't be because of the way the world is right now. But two, there's circumstances around this Giannis thing that already need to be considered in terms of the future of this team. And as blatantly as I can put it is just, does the extension matter? Looking at the history of star players recently in the NBA that have signed big extensions with the teams that have drafted them or the teams that have acquired them, and whether or not that actually ends up mattering down the road. And does this 5 years of Giannis signing this extension mean 5 more years of Giannis in Milwaukee? And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every day, so it's a fantastic place for consistent NBA content. You can also leave a like rating on the videos as well. Helps me out a ton, lets me know that you're enjoying this specific piece of content, and helps it get out to more people on YouTube as well. And you can check me out at various socials at the bottom of the screen that are in a link tree down in the description below. But with those things said, let's talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo's new extension with the Milwaukee Bucks and what it really means for his future as a Buck. So this era that we're in the NBA over the last 5 or 6 years minimum, I think has to be defined by the empowerment of players to make their own decisions and to, in some cases, force franchises to make decisions that they don't want to make. I think previously you could talk about the three-point shot and how that was ushered into the league and how much of a big deal that's now become. But I would say in the more recent years of the league, it's been defined by player movement and player empowerment. Going back to the summer of 2019, where half the All-NBA guys from the previous year switched teams, whether that be via trade or free agency. Players going to more of these shorter contracts where they're able to jump from place to place or maximize the amount of money they're making all the time. The input that franchise players have had on the team building of franchises, and not just LeBron from place to place that he's been, but someone like James Harden that we're going to talk about a little bit later in this video, basically coming to Rockets ownership and saying, hey, we got to go get Russell Westbrook. The players have more power now than they've ever had. And in my mind, that's a good thing. But what that also means is that a player signing a contract just simply doesn't mean as much anymore because of how often and how successful players have been in requesting trades. So let's go look at kind of the history of the situation. There's two big indicators here of like, oh, this guy signed a new extension, but he's actually not going to be here for as long as you thought, or at least not as happy as you would have thought. So the first would be Anthony Davis, who, as we all know, got traded to the Lakers, what is it, a year and a half ago now, 2 years ago? And AD signed a 5-year rookie max extension in 2015. A couple years after being drafted by the Pelicans, he was like, I want to stay here. I want to be part of something special here in New Orleans. Or maybe more accurately, he just wanted the max money that New Orleans could provide. But regardless, he signs a 5-year extension in the non-basketball, the non-professional sports world. That means that you're committed to playing for this franchise, for working for this team for another 5 years. That's what the contract means, right? But by 2018, just 3 years later, Anthony Davis was requesting to be traded, and he was trying to work his way out of New Orleans, ideally to get to LA and ultimately to play with LeBron James and ultimately to win a title. And I think because of the success that he ended up having in LA, people aren't necessarily going to hold that against him, but that's the reality of the situation. As Anthony Davis committed to a 5-year contract with the New Orleans Pelicans in 2015, they paid him all this money, and then 3 years later, he said, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore, trade me. Again, we can move on to another example. Someone that we talked about earlier, James Harden, signed a 5-year extension in 2017 that was going to have him with the Rockets through the 2022-23 season. At the time, it was the biggest contract handed out in NBA history. And here we are now in 2020, 3 years later, James Harden is asking to be traded for the Houston Rockets after having a large input in the personnel decisions of the rosters, most specifically getting rid of someone that was really successful for them in Chris Paul. And he was like, I don't want to play with him anymore. Go get Russell Westbrook. And they did it, and they listened. And now, because of a coaching change, because of a front office change, because the team doesn't look like it's going to be as good, James Harden says, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore. I know I signed the contract, but and I've got 2 years left on it, but go ahead and move me. I don't want to be a Houston Rocket anymore. And that relates to Giannis because that means they've got about 2.5 years of happy Giannis before they've got to, potentially deal with the James Harden and the Anthony Davis situation, where they're like, I know I've got a couple years left, but I don't want to be here. Everybody in the league knows I don't want to be here. Trade me. And there are other examples we can look at throughout the league as well, where players were successful in asking for a trade and wanting to be traded and ultimately being traded. And so what that means is what if things go badly for Milwaukee? What if 2 years from now, Chris Middleton is getting older, he's just simply not as good, the other players on the roster haven't continued to grow and develop, guys like Dante DiVincenzo just aren't what the Bucks had hoped that they would be at that point. Drew Holiday, continues to get hurt or just isn't that good. It's an aging roster around Giannis, and they're still good, but they're only good because of Giannis. There's nothing there helping him. At that point, even though he signed this huge Supermax extension, there's no guarantee that Giannis won't just turn around and say, you know what, I've given a lot to this team, I've given a lot to this franchise, but I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be a Buck. I know I signed this 5-year extension, but it's been 3 years. I've got 2 more years left on my deal. Trade me, send me somewhere else. That's a realistic possibility, and I think if you're looking at recent NBA history, if they don't win a title, I think it's a relatively likely possibility. The counter to that would be that Giannis to this point has seemed different. He has seemed like a guy that wants to be loyal to Milwaukee and is loyal to Milwaukee. And I think he gets a lot of credit now from NBA fans for signing the Supermax with the team that drafted him, with the team that took a chance on him, as a really, really unknown draft prospect. And he turned out to be an incredible player and really worked hard to make that happen. But he's rewarding the loyalty that Milwaukee showed to him by showing loyalty back to them, and their commitment to continuing to try and build a winning team around him certainly helps as well. And all those things seem different in contrast to different situations we've seen in the past with star players that just don't feel that same level of connection and commitment to their initial franchise that Giannis does. So that would be the counter, would be that Giannis is different. He wouldn't just request to be traded with 2 years left on his contract. He would honor the commitment that he made to the franchise and then potentially look at going somewhere else if they still haven't won a title during this 5-year contract. I hear that, but if we get 3 years from now and the Bucks still haven't won the title, or for some reason they haven't even made the finals yet, how much of that loyalty is going to be outweighed by the competitiveness of Giannis and how much he wants to win a title? I think that's a question worth asking, and it's a realistic possibility, in my opinion, that 3 years from now, Giannis is asking to be traded. The Bucks are exploring trading Giannis because he just isn't happy, doesn't want to be there. The roster is aging around him, and that's just kind of the reality of the NBA that we're in now, the NBA in 2020. And you can argue if that's a good or a bad thing. Certainly from a content standpoint, from a news standpoint, the massive amount of player movement and the constant threat of a player being traded is great for content, and it's great for having stuff to talk about 24/7, 365. But from a competitive balance standpoint, if teams like Milwaukee can't retain a player like Giannis that has shown a willingness to stay there and shown loyalty to them, but they still weren't able to figure it out, still weren't able to win a title, and he ends up going to Dallas or LA or New York or whatever, and it's just constantly all we have is all these players just going to these bigger markets all the time. That's a competitive balance issue for the league, and it's something that they're going to have to contend with if that's the way these things continue to work out. I don't necessarily think that just because Giannis signed this Supermax that A, he's going to be there for all 5 years and not asked to be traded, or B, that this just ends this referendum on, is all this player movement good and are players going to be loyal and does it matter if they are or aren't. I don't think this ends that discussion until we get to the point where 3 years from now, Giannis isn't just asking to be traded. And the best thing the Bucks can do to prevent that is just go win a title. If Anthony Davis had won a title with the Pelicans, or if James Harden had won a title with the Houston Rockets, I don't think that they would be requesting a trade right now. Now, with Anthony Davis specifically, he wanted to go to LA for a long, long time. So maybe he still would have asked to be traded or just waited out his contract and then signed elsewhere. But that's the biggest differentiator here. That's the biggest move that Milwaukee can make, is by winning a title with Giannis and saying, hey, I know that you've had issues with, some things in the past, and I'm glad you committed to us. We're going to go win a title. We're going to go, build a competitive team. They end up doing that. Then this isn't even a conversation to be had. But it's one that I wanted to point out. It's one that I wanted to talk about because I think we've all kind of taken a deep breath in the Giannis stuff, and rightfully so. But that doesn't mean that he's guaranteed to stay on this team for 5 years, and 3 years from now, if I'm making a NBA trade machine Giannis Antetokounmpo, I wouldn't be shocked. So that's going to be the end of today's video. Thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, including any of the videos that I have uploaded twice a day, every day, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Once again, my name is Tucker, and I will see you all next time.